The air in the godswood was colder than it had any right to be, even for this late spring evening, but Ned Stark felt no urge to move. The weirwood's white face, stained red with sap, stared down on him in silent judgment as he stood beneath its ancient boughs, hands clasped behind his back. He was waiting for a sign, or perhaps forgiveness, or perhaps nothing at all. He was never quite sure what he hoped to find here, except that it had always felt safer beneath these trees than anywhere else in the Red Keep. He could not stay much longer. Duty called him, as it always did, and the world beyond the tranquil hush of the godswood was seething with problems. King Robert raged at Lannisters behind closed doors. Queen Cersei sent cold glances across council tables. Littlefinger whispered poison into every ear, and the city seemed full of shadows that moved even when the sun shone bright on the stone. But it was not the king nor the queen nor the court that troubled him most this night. It was a dwarf, locked in the dark of the dungeons, waiting for justice. Justice or mercy. The steps of the steward reached him before the voice did. Jory Castle's footfalls were always measured, never hurried nor hesitant. He was a good man. He deserved better than the fate he would meet. Ned forced the thought away. "My lord," Jory said, bowing his head. "You asked to be told when the hour was late. It is." Ned exhaled, watching his breath cloud in the cool air. "Tell them I'll be there shortly." He looked up at the carved face of the old gods one last time. "Thank you, Jory." He left the godswood and the peace behind him, feeling as if he carried every burden in Westeros on his back. The cells beneath the Red Keep stank of damp and rot. Ned's nose had never grown used to it, not even after a dozen visits in a dozen years. Tyrion Lannister awaited him there, seated on a bench, legs dangling just above the filthy floor. He looked up as Ned approached, those mismatched eyes bright in the gloom. A flicker of something like hope or defiance. "So," Tyrion said, and even chained he could not help but smile. "The mighty hand of the king honors me with a personal visit. To what do I owe the pleasure?" Ned nodded to the guards, who withdrew to the far end of the hall, out of earshot. Only Jory remained, eyes flicking between his lord and the prisoner. "Lord Tyrion," Ned said, his voice grave. "You know why you are here. Accused of a crime I did not commit, yes. The story of my life." Tyrion shrugged. "Is this the part where you tell me I'll have a fair trial? Or simply a sword to the neck?" "Ben Chun." Ned studied the Lannister, searching for the deception he had so often seen in Cersei's gaze. But Tyrion's eyes, for all their mischief, were unclouded by guilt. "I have spoken to your brother Jaime," Ned said. "He claims you had nothing to do with the attempt on my son's life. My brother's loyalty does him credit, but I should hope my innocence does more." There was silence then, a heavy, thoughtful silence. Ned considered the memory of Catelyn's voice, the anguish in it as she'd accused Tyrion. He remembered the broken body of Bran, still and silent, waiting for death, or for a miracle. "If it were up to me," Ned said, "you would be released. But my wife, my house, deserves justice. She is not here. I am." Tyrion's smile faded. "What would you have of me, Lord Stark? Truth. And, if you have it, help. The realm is at war with itself, though no swords have yet been drawn. I would see my family safe. I would see the North remain whole. You have influence with your father, with your brother, with your Gull." Tyrion cocked his head. "You would bargain with a Lannister?" "I would," Ned said, voice firm as steel. "But not for my own sake. For my children, for my people. If you can give me your word, and more than your word, your help, I will see you freed. Not as a fugitive, but as an ally. The North remembers, Lord Tyrion. We reward those who keep faith." For a long time, Tyrion stared at him, and in that moment, Ned saw more than a dwarf or a jester or a clever tongue. He saw a man weighed down by his own chains, seeking a path through darkness. "You are not like the others, Lord Stark," Tyrion said softly. "You deal honestly, which in this city is akin to madness. But I have no wish to see my kin destroyed by foolish pride, nor do I relish the thought of war between our houses. If you free me, publicly with honor, I will do all in my power to keep the peace." Ned extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Tyrion took it. It was done. The wheels began to turn. The council chamber was thick with tension when Ned entered, accompanied by Tyrion, cleaned, dressed, and unshackled. Cersei's eyes widened in disbelief. Littlefinger's lips twitched in suppressed amusement. King Robert, red-faced and impatient, glared at them both. "What is the meaning of this?" the Queen demanded, voice sharp as a knife. Ned did not flinch. "Lord Tyrion Lannister has been cleared of all charges concerning the attack on my son. New evidence has come to light." Littlefinger grinned. "How convenient, my lord. Evidence appears and disappears as the wind blows in King's Landing." Ned fixed him with a look. "Perhaps, Lord Baelish, but unlike some, I do not trade in shadows." Robert grunted, waving a hand. "Enough of this. If Ned says the imp is innocent, I'll hear no more of it. There are more important matters, wars to be fought, debts to be paid." His voice trailed off as he caught Cersei's glare. Cersei recovered herself, lips pursed. "Very well. But the people will talk, Lord Stark. They always do." "Let them," Ned said. He did not miss the way Tyrion's eyes flicked toward his sister, nor the silent message that passed between them. That night, in Ned's solar, Tyrion sat with a goblet of fine wine, his sharp tongue momentarily stilled. Ned poured himself a cup of strong northern ale, feeling the tension in his shoulders slowly ease. "You understand what you've done, Lord Stark?" Tyrion asked quietly. Ned nodded. "I have thrown down a gauntlet, but I would rather know my enemies than chase shadows." Tyrion sipped his wine. "You have made a friend too, though we Lannisters are not always the most loyal of allies. Still, I keep my bargains." "Good," Ned said, watching the fire burn low. "Because soon, I may call upon you to prove it." The news traveled fast. By the time the sun rose, word had spread throughout the city. Tyrion Lannister, set free by Eddard Stark, had pledged himself to the service of the Hand. Some called it madness. Some called it a masterstroke. The court divided itself, as it always did, into factions. Ned found himself watched at every turn. By Varys, who drifted in and out like a ghost. By Baelish, who smiled too often. By the Queen, whose eyes burned with hatred. Only Tyrion seemed unchanged, flitting between council meetings and taverns, gathering secrets like a crow gathers shiny stones. It was at one such meeting, days later, that the first test of their alliance came. A message arrived, sealed with the Lion of Lannister. Tywin summoned his son, demanding his immediate return to Casterly Rock. Tyrion read the message aloud, his voice dry. "My father is not pleased. He does not appreciate having his kin manhandled by Starks, nor released without his say-so." Ned did not blink. "Will you go?" Tyrion set the letter aside. "Not yet. There is work to be done here, and I am nothing if not diligent." Ned inclined his head. "Your loyalty will not be forgotten." "Loyalty?" Tyrion laughed. "Let us call it self-interest. I find myself surprisingly invested in your cause, Lord Stark." "Then?" Catelyn's letter arrived as a bitter wind from the north, filled with pain and longing. Bran's condition was unchanged. The assassin had left him broken, but alive. Worse, Lysa Arryn had declared herself for the Vale, denouncing the Lannisters and calling for war. The court was a tinderbox. One spark, and all would burn. Ned called for Tyrion, seeking counsel from a mind unlike any other he knew. "She wishes to draw you into her war," Tyrion said, studying the letter. "Your sister-in-law is a fool. She will find no peace in the Eyrie, only loneliness and madness." "I know. She is family," Ned said. "But she is not wrong to mistrust the Lannisters." Tyrion raised an eyebrow. "Present company accepted?" Ned allowed himself a thin smile. "For now." Tyrion considered. "You need allies, not more enemies. The Vale is lost to you unless you can win it back, or persuade the Queen that Lysa's accusations are madness. And how do I do that? With gold? Or with secrets?" Ned's face darkened. "I do not deal in secrets." "Then let me," Tyrion said. "Let me do what I do best." Reluctantly, Ned nodded. So be it. But no more blood. I will not have it. Tyrion stood, bowing with mock gravity. As my lord commands. The days that followed were a whirlwind of rumors and plots. Varys and Littlefinger circled, each seeking to outmaneuver the other. Tyrion, to Ned's surprise, proved deft at navigating the treacherous waters of court intrigue, playing the fools against the cunning, whispering poison into the ears of those who needed to hear it, promising rewards and favors that cost nothing to give. In time, he returned to Ned with news. Your lady wife's sister is not as isolated as she believes, Tyrion reported. The lords declarant of the Vale grow restless under her rule. Some could be persuaded to lend their swords to your cause, if you promise them protection from Lannister wrath. Ned frowned. And what would they demand in return? Independence, or at least the illusion of it. Ned stared into the fire, seeing the north. Cold, proud, unyielding. We are not the South, Lord Tyrion. We do not break faith lightly. Tyrion nodded. But you may find that in these times, even the old faith must bend. Bend or break. In the end, the decision was forced by events beyond their control. King Robert rode out on a hunt, leaving the city in the hands of his council. The queen, emboldened by her husband's absence, pressed her claim for power. She demanded Ned's resignation as Hand, citing his reckless endangerment of the realm by freeing a Lannister prisoner. Ned refused, standing firm as only a Stark could. The small council erupted into chaos. Only Tyrion remained calm, watching as the players moved their pieces on the board. That night Tyrion came to Ned's chambers, cloak pulled tight against the chill. Your enemies are gathering, Lord Stark. You must move swiftly. Or not at all. I will not run, Ned said. No, but you must act. There is a way. One that will secure your house, your family, and perhaps even the realm. But it requires trust. More trust than men like us are used to giving. Ned stared at him. Speak plainly. Ellie with me, Tyrion said, voice low and urgent. Publicly. Let us show the city. No, the realm, that Stark and Lannister can stand together. If we do, others will follow. The Vale, the Riverlands, even the Reach. All fear war. All seek peace, if they believe it is possible. Ned hesitated, the weight of history pressing down on him. Stark and Lannister? Side by side? The very thought was madness. But in madness, there was often the seed of hope. He nodded once. Very well. Let it be known. The North and the Lions stand together. Tyrion grinned, fierce and bright. Then let us see if we can make history. The news broke like a storm across the realm. In the Great Hall, before the assembled court, Ned Stark and Tyrion Lannister stood together. Ned's words were clear, his voice steady. The North has found an ally in House Lannister. Let no man say otherwise. There were gasps, mutters, shouts of disbelief. But in the days that followed, something unexpected happened. The tides of war, so close to breaking, receded. The lords of the Vale sent envoys, seeking terms. The Riverlands hesitated, their swords unblooded. Even the Reach. So long the king's loyalists paused to consider. In the shadows, Varys and Littlefinger whispered of doom. The queen plotted vengeance. But for a moment, just a moment, the realm held its breath. Ned and Tyrion met that night beneath the boughs of the Godswood, the moon silver above them. We have done a mad thing, Ned said, half smiling. The best things always are, Tyrion replied. And as the wind stirred the leaves, carrying the scent of pine and snow, Eddard Stark dared to hope that at last he had found a path through darkness. A path not of blood, but of honor. A path perhaps to peace. The fires in King's Landing never seemed to sleep, crackling behind windows and in street braziers, sending plumes of smoke up to tangle with the night. On the surface, the city was calm, unnaturally so. But Ned Stark, as he strode through the torchlit corridors of the Red Keep, knew the peace was brittle as old ice. He had felt its tension in the eyes of every nobleman who passed him by, had tasted it in every half-swallowed whisper behind his back. In the quiet of his solar, Sansa waited, seated by the window, needlework abandoned in her lap. Arya stood nearby, sword at her hip, frowning at her father's return. "Papa," Arya said, brow furrowed. The city's scared. Ned knelt, opening his arms. Arya ran into his embrace, Sansa trailing with more decorum but no less love. For a moment, he let himself forget the burden he bore. Holding his daughters close, breathing in the scent of their hair, the memories of home and hearth rising up to haunt him. "It will be all right," he murmured. Not certain he believed it, but knowing they needed to hear it. The North is strong. And now. He looked up at Sansa, who watched with wide, worried eyes. "We have friends we did not expect. Even in the South." Sansa bit her lip. "The Queen says Lannisters are not to be trusted. So says every mother about her rivals," Ned said softly. "But men are more than their banners. Lord Tyrion is clever, and clever men know when peace is better than war." Arya looked up. "Will he help Bran?" Ned touched her hair. "He has promised to." He sent them away then to their beds, but their questions followed him as he prepared for sleep. If peace was possible, it would be through the most unlikely of friendships. One forged in the dungeons, tested in council, and now to be sealed. He hoped, by bold action. He knew what must be done. He only prayed he could do it in time. Tyrion Lannister had never felt more exposed in his life. The city watched him with suspicion. His every movement trailed by guards. Stark men, for now, but not so many that they could truly protect him should the mob turn ugly. Even in the bustling market square, vendors grew quiet as he passed. The laughter of children faded into wary silence. Yet for all that, Tyrion found himself invigorated. Danger sharpened his wits. With Littlefinger and Varys nipping at his heels, every word must be calculated, every jest a cloak for deeper meaning. He sought out the most garrulous innkeepers, the greediest merchants, the half-drunk sellswords. The city's true pulse beat not in the halls of power, but in its gutters and stables. He heard things. Whispers of the Queen's anger, her quiet promises of gold for Stark blood. Rumors that Renly Baratheon, ambitious and reckless, gathered supporters in the Reach. That Stannis, cold and unyielding, had sailed from Dragonstone with black sails and grim intent. More troubling were the mutterings from the Gold Cloaks. Janos Slynt, their commander, was a man of uncertain loyalties. He kept his men close and his purse closer. Cersei had her hooks deep in the city watch, deeper than Ned Stark yet realized. Tyrion saw the storm gathering. He quickened his pace. It was a strange thing to be received in Eddard Stark's chambers as an equal. Tyrion stood by the fire, wine in hand, as Ned unfurled a fresh letter from Winterfell, his face inscrutable. "They have tried again," Ned said quietly. "Bran still lives, but another man, found dead at the base of the tower." Tyrion paled. "Another assassin? Not mine, I assure you." "I know," Ned said, voice iron. "If you meant to kill my son, you would not be standing here now." He let the parchment drop, gaze fixed on the flames. "What I need is proof. Caitlyn believes your family behind this. Cersei, Jaime, your father perhaps. But why? What does Bran know?" Tyrion considered. "Children see more than they understand. If your boy glimpsed something..." "Someone on that tower. He would not know the import, but others might." "Now, the Lannisters," Ned said. "Cersei and Jaime." Tyrion did not answer directly, but Ned caught the shadow in his eyes. "You need to act," Tyrion said, voice low. "You have allies now. Use them. The Queen is plotting. She'll move against you the moment Robert's back is turned." Ned bristled. "I will not bring open war upon the city. And if you wait," Tyrion said, "she'll kill you, Ned, and your children." The words hung between them, stark as any winter dawn. "Then we move first," Ned decided. "Quietly, with care. We need to know who we can trust, and who we cannot." Tyrion drained his cup. You need the gold cloaks. Slynt is bought and paid for by Cersei, but not all the watch answers to him. Let me speak to Bronn, and a few others. Some men serve only the highest bidder. I will not rule by coin, Ned said coldly. Then you'll not rule at all, Tyrion replied, matching him stare for stare. Gold is what wins wars in the south, Lord Stark. Let me do this. If I fail, I'll hang, Lannister or no. Ned exhaled slowly. Do what you must. But I want no blood in the streets, unless it is the only way. Nendem Sa. Tyrion bowed, lips quirking in a crooked smile. As you wish. But steel in the dark may spare blood at dawn. 3 days later, the wind turned sharp and chill, sending shudders down the spines of even the most hardened gold cloaks. Slynt eyed his men with growing unease, watching for signs of wavering loyalty. But they still took their orders. Coin spoke louder than banners for most. It was Littlefinger who played his hand first, inviting Ned to his chambers under the guise of council business. The room was thick with the scent of lavender and ink, papers strewn across the desk. My lord hand, Petyr purred. Word travels fast in King's Landing. The city is abuzz with talk of your new alliance. Ned sat, weary. If you mean with Lord Tyrion, yes. It was necessary. Littlefinger smiled thinly. Everything is necessary until it is not. Tell me. How much do you trust the imp? Ned met his gaze. Enough. Why? Because not all in his house are as clever as he. Littlefinger toyed with his knife. The queen grows desperate. She has sent word to Casterly Rock. Tywin is amassing men, enough to threaten Riverrun and the Riverlands. Now, Ned frowned. What do you propose? Petyr leaned in. Let me keep watch on the queen. You focus on securing the city. There are interests here that would benefit from peace. The brothels, the merchants, even the faith. And you? Ned asked, cold. Littlefinger's smile never faltered. I benefit when the city thrives, and when chaos comes, well, I always land on my feet. Ned left, uneasy, and resolved to trust Littlefinger not a whit more than he had to. At sunset, Tyrion met Bronn in a low tavern near the Mudgate. The sellsword was lean and hungry-looking, his sword never far from reach. He listened to Tyrion's offer with interest, then nodded once. Gold now, gold later? As much as you can carry, Tyrion promised. And a place at the hand's table if you see us through this. Bronn grinned, all teeth. Done. By midnight, the die was cast. Bronn and a half-dozen sellswords, disguised as common watchmen, infiltrated Slynt's patrols. The mood among the gold cloaks was restless. Some had heard whispers of the Queen's gold. Others remembered what happened to those who crossed the Lannisters. But the city was changing. Men who had always looked south to the rock now watched the Stark banners with wary hope. The MP's shadow lengthened. Where Tyrion went, trouble followed, but also coin. When King Robert returned, bloody and half-drunk from his hunt, he found the city not at peace, but held together by a thread. The council met in the throne room at his command. Cersei on one side, eyes burning, Ned and Tyrion on the other, silent and grim. My lords, Robert roared, enough of this squabbling. We are one realm. I'll have no more talk of war, do you hear me? Cersei's mouth twisted. If only the hand remembered he serves the king, not himself. He frees Lannister prisoners, makes deals behind your back. Ned stood, every inch the north. I have acted to preserve the peace, your grace. Not for myself. For you, for the realm. Robert glared at both of them, then slumped into his throne. Fix it, Ned. Make peace with the lions, or I'll send you both home and let Stannis clean up the mess. After, Cersei cornered Tyrion in dark alcove. You shame us, she hissed. You side with Starks now. I side with survival, dear sister. Tyrion replied quietly. Father will not thank you if you turn King's Landing into a slaughterhouse. Her eyes glittered with threat. You always were a fool. He bowed, sweeping her a mocking flourish. And yet, I live. The weeks that followed were full of tension and danger. Ned sent urgent riders north, ordering Robb to hold the neck and prepare for war, but not to march unless commanded. He wrote to Catelyn, warning her to keep Bran safe, to trust no one but Maester Luwin and Roderick. The North must be ready for anything. Tyrion became the Hand's right arm, gathering informants, bribing guards, smoothing over conflicts with quick wit and quicker coin. Under his hand, the city watch shifted. Slint's men found themselves posted to distant gates or the dungeons, while Bronn's new men took key positions around the Red Keep. The alliance took on substance. Lords from the Riverlands and Vale began to arrive, drawn by hope of peace or fear of the Lannisters' wrath. Ned received them all with solemn courtesy, laying out his terms. No war, unless war was forced upon them. Justice for the attack on Bran, and guarantees of safety for all who kept the king's peace. Tyrion met quietly with his own envoys. His cousin Lancel carried messages to Casterly Rock, while Varys, ever the Spider, watched with silent interest. At night, Ned dreamed of Winterfell, of snow falling thick on the courtyard, of the laughter of his children, of Catelyn's hand in his. The South had never felt like home, but he steeled himself for what was to come. The storm broke in the late afternoon, with a messenger riding hard from the Trident. Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, had raided the Riverlands, burning villages, slaughtering small folk. The council met in uproar. Ned stood, thunder in his voice. "This is Tywin's doing. He tests the king's resolve." Robert, too weary or too drunk to intervene, waved him on. "Do what must be done, Ned." Tyrion watched, calculating. "If you march, you will leave the city exposed. Cersei will not hesitate to strike." Ned nodded. "Then I must trust you to keep her in check." Tyrion inclined his head. "I will do what I can. But remember, wolves are never safe in a den of lions." Ned marched, taking a company of Northmen and Riverlords to confront the Mountain. He left Tyrion in King's Landing, empowered to speak with his voice and command his men. It was a gamble, but in war, every move was a risk. Cersei did not wait long. With Ned gone, she moved swiftly, ordering the arrest of Sansa and Arya, declaring them hostages for the good conduct of their father. Tyrion intervened, using all his cunning. He bribed the right guards, whispered into the right ears. By dawn, the girls had vanished from the royal apartments, spirited away by Varys' little birds, smuggled into the safety of the Stark loyalists. Cersei flew into a rage, but could do nothing without proof. When word reached Ned on the march, relief nearly undid him. He pressed on, fighting the Mountain at the ford of the Red Fork. The battle was fierce, the Riverlords emboldened by the North. Gregor fell, wounded and captured, dragged in chains before the lords. Ned's justice was swift. "For the crimes of murder and treason, I sentence you to death." With the Mountain's execution, the message was clear. No man, however mighty, was above the law of the realm. In King's Landing, Tyrion played a delicate game. He soothed the Reach Lords with promises of trade and favor. He reminded the Tyrells that war would devastate their lands as surely as Lannister pride. He offered quiet bribes to those who could be swayed, threats to those who could not. Littlefinger tried to sow division, but found himself thwarted at every turn. Varys, for reasons of his own, lent subtle aid, ensuring that messages reached their destinations, that rumors favored the alliance. The city was tense, but held. The Queen could not strike openly. Too many lords now watched, waiting to see if Stark and Lannister would tear each other apart, or forge something new. Robb Stark arrived from the north, tall and grim, leading 2,000 men. He met Tyrion at the city gates, wary but respectful. "My father says you are his ally. I pray you prove worthy of his trust." Tyrion bowed. "I aim to do just that, Lord Robb." With the North and Riverlands in concert, with the Vale Lords watching and the Reach held at bay, the realm stood on a knife's edge. Any misstep could plunge it into chaos. But for now, there was peace. When Ned returned, weary but victorious, he was received as a hero. The Riverlords swore allegiance anew. The king, sober for once, embraced him before the court. "You've done what I could not, Ned," Robert said, voice thick with emotion. "Kept the realm from bleeding." Ned bowed. "For now, your grace. There will be others." Then Tyrion stood at his side, watching the court. "You have enemies, Lord Stark, but you have friends too, even among lions." Ned nodded, laying a hand on Tyrion's shoulder. "We are not so different, you and I," Ned said softly. "Both outsiders in this den of vipers." Tyrion smiled, genuine for once. "Then let us watch each other's backs. I suspect we will need to." The city held its breath, waiting for the next move. But for one brief, shining season, the North and the West stood side by side. The peace was uneasy, the future uncertain, but hope, faint and fragile, flickered in the hearts of those who remembered the old ways and dreamed of better days to come. The days slipped by, measured by bells and the march of sunlight across stone courtyards. But the sense of calm in King's Landing was that of a wolf's den at dusk, uneasy, brittle, charged with the promise of violence barely restrained. Ned Stark bore the weight of it in his bones, as heavy as the great sword Ice strapped to his back, when he ventured into the training yard each dawn to remind himself who he truly was. Robb had taken quickly to the city's rhythms, if not to its politics. Arya, ever restless, haunted the halls in search of lessons from Syrio Forel or secrets in the shadows. Sansa kept to her room, neither trusting the courtiers who sought her favor, nor the queen who glared at her across every meal. The city was their prison, as much as their refuge. Tyrion Lannister spent those days moving through a world of whispers. He became a fixture at council, at court, at every tavern where gold changed hands and secrets were traded for a smile and a heavy purse. Some called him the Hand's Shadow, others Ned's lion-tongued jester, but all soon realized that every rumor in the city found its way to his ear. It was at dusk, as a storm gathered far out over Blackwater Bay, that the next move on the board was made. A rider from the East Gate, lathered in sweat and terror, brought news of a column of armed men, 500 at least, arriving under banners gold and red. The Lannister host, led by Kevan Lannister, had ridden hard from Casterly Rock to the capital, demanding audience with King Robert and Eddard Stark. Tyrion found Ned in the Solar, reading a raven's letter by candlelight. "They've come sooner than I hoped," Tyrion said, not bothering to hide his concern. "My uncle will not act rashly, but he is father's sword as much as his mouthpiece." Ned looked up. "If your father meant to break the peace, he'd have brought 10,000, not 500. Tyrion smirked. "True, but 500 well-placed men in this city could tip any scale." "Then we see to it they don't," Ned replied. "You will greet them with me. This alliance will not be won with swords or banners, but with truth and honor." Then Shadow. Tyrion's look was almost fond. "Ever the Northman. And you, ever the Lannister." Ned answered, not unkindly. "If this is to hold, we both must be something more." The next morning, the Lannister party arrived in the Red Keep's great hall, gold armor bright as the sunrise. Kevan Lannister, grave and measured, stood at their head, flanked by knights with hard eyes and hard hearts. Ned received him with all courtesy due a great lord, Robb and Tyrion at his side. Robert, disheveled from another night of wine, presided from the Iron Throne, with Cersei below, her smile edged with contempt. "Lord Eddard," Kevan said, voice carrying through the hall, "I come at my brother's command. He demands justice for the insult done our house by the seizure and imprisonment of his son, and answers for the blood spilled in the Riverlands by men calling themselves king's men." Ned's voice was iron. Lord Tyrion was freed by the king's justice, not northern vengeance. As for the Riverlands, it was Tywin's men who crossed the Trident with sword and torch. If you wish justice, it begins with truth, not threats. "Mendham Sachs." Kevan's eyes flicked to Tyrion. "You have cast your lot with House Stark then?" Tyrion bowed with mock solemnity. "I have cast my lot with peace, uncle. There are worse fates than being the Hand's trusted advisor, I assure you." The court watched the exchange as if waiting for a blade to drop. Ned felt Cersei's gaze burning into him, searching for weakness. It was Robert who broke the silence. Slamming a fist on the throne, "I'll have no more blood feuds in my city," the king roared. "We are one realm. The next lord who draws steel in my presence will lose more than his lands. Am I understood?" Mendamawar. Reluctantly, Kevin inclined his head. "You are, your grace. But know that my brother will not forget this slight. Let him remember what happens to those who break the peace," Ned answered, meeting Kevin's gaze without flinching. When the Lannisters departed, the great hall emptied in uneasy silence. Tyrion remained, his face thoughtful. "You held your ground. My father will respect that, if not like it. But the game is changing. He'll send envoys to every corner of the realm now, seeking to isolate the north. And you, Mentionau." Ned nodded. "Then we must do the same." "How many friends do you truly have in the Rock, Tyrion?" Tyrion hesitated, then answered honestly. "Fewer than I once did. But some cousins, a few distant knights, and gold enough to tempt a priest to preach blasphemy, if I wished it. Then use them. Quietly. We must know what Tywin plans before he moves." The weeks that followed were a season of spies. Ravens flew nightly from every tower. Messengers rode in the dark, bearing secrets disguised as innocuous letters. Tyrion and Varys, unlikely partners, pooled their informants. Bronn and his sellswords melted into the alleys and whorehouses, gathering rumors and quieting trouble before it could ignite. Arya, always curious, watched Tyrion at work and learned to listen more than she spoke. He found her hiding behind a tapestry one evening, eyes bright with questions. "You have a talent for secrets, little wolf," Tyrion said, crouching down to her level. "But beware. Some secrets bite back." Arya grinned. "I'm not afraid. I want to help." Menduanawan. He nodded gravely. "Then remember what you hear and who says it. Come to me or to your father if you hear something dangerous. You may save more than yourself." She took his words to heart, and before long it was Arya who brought Ned a warning. A drunken gold cloak boasting in a flea-bottom tavern that the queen planned to slip poison into the Stark wine casks. Ned acted at once, switching the casks and having the queen's cupbearer followed. The plot was uncovered, but not before two lesser lords fell ill. Cersei didn't need all knowledge, but Ned's patience with her games was at an end. He went to Robert, who listened in weary silence. "I should have sent her back to Casterly Rock years ago," Robert said bitterly. "She hates me, hates all of us." Ned knelt. "She is dangerous, but the realm needs peace. So do our children." Robert covered his face with one hand, nodding slowly. "Do what you must, Ned, but keep my boy out of it. Let the gods damn the rest." Ned rose, his resolve hardening. He returned to the Hand's Tower, called for Tyrion, and told him the truth. "She means to kill us all," Ned said quietly. "And now she knows she cannot win with poison. She will turn to steel." Tyrion's eyes narrowed. "Then let us sharpen our own." It was not long before violence came. One night, 3 of Ned's men were found dead in the gutters outside a brothel. Their throats had been slit, coins pressed into their mouths. The mark of the faceless men, or so the city whispered. Tyrion recognized the true hand behind it. "Joffrey," he said grimly. "Or the queen, acting through him. The boy is cruel. He loves nothing but hurting others." "Now." Ned sent word to Robb, who doubled the guards on the girls and made ready the Northmen for battle. He summoned the Gold Cloak's captains, dismissed Slint on a pretense, and placed Bronn's loyal men in charge of the palace gates. Word came that Tywin Lannister had sent envoys to the Vale, urging Lysa Arryn to join him against the Starks. Lysa, ever fearful, sent polite refusals. But her knights began to mass on the bloody gate, uncertain where her loyalties would fall if swords were drawn. Ned prepared for siege, but it was Sansa who brought him the first sign of hope. She came to him at dusk, pale and hesitant. "Father, the Queen is planning something. She met with Lord Baelish tonight. and he promised her the support of the gold cloaks. I overheard them. She means to seize you, arrest you, maybe even kill you. Ned kissed her forehead. You did well, sweet girl. Now listen carefully. Take Arya, go to the stable and wait for Jory. If I do not come by dawn, ride north. Do not look back. Sansa nodded, tears in her eyes, and fled to find her sister. Ned found Tyrion in the council chamber, map spread before him. It begins tonight, Ned said. Will you stand with me or with your family? Tyrion regarded him for a long moment. If I did not already have cause to hate Cersei, her plotting has given it to me 100-fold. I will not see the city drown in Lannister bloodlust. My father can rot with his gold. They went together to the barracks, where Bronn waited with 24 men. By midnight, the Red Keep was locked down. Every gate guarded by Starks or Bronn's hand-picked sellswards. Every corridor watched. The city waited, tense as a drawn bowstring. Just before dawn, Varys arrived, silent and pale. She moves. Joffrey commands the gold cloaks to arrest you both, my lords. Baelish leads them. Ned's jaw clenched. Then we meet them in the throne room. They entered together. Eddard Stark, greatsword ice across his back. Tyrion Lannister limping at his side, Bronn and his men flanking them. The throne room was already crowded, gold cloaks lining the walls, Baelish at their head. Joffrey sat upon the Iron Throne, Cersei standing behind him, cold and triumphant. Baelish stepped forward, by order of the king. But before he could finish, Bronn gave a sharp whistle. Half the gold cloaks turned their swords, not on Ned, but on Baelish and Slynt. Swords rang on stone, chaos erupted. Ned's Northmen surged forward, Robb at their head. Arya and Sansa slipped behind the lines, shielded by Jory. Joffrey screamed, demanding the traitors be slain, but none obeyed. Cersei shrieked, and Baelish tried to run, only to be felled by an arrow from the balcony. Arya's work, swift and sure. In moments, it was over. Baelish lay dead, Slynt in chains, Cersei and Joffrey forced from the throne. Robert, roused from drunken slumber, stumbled into the carnage, aghast at what he found. Ned faced him, bloodied but unbowed. Your Grace, your wife sought to usurp your rule and kill your hand. The city is secure, for now. What you do next will decide if the realm stands or falls. Robert's eyes, red and rimmed with tears, flickered from Ned to Tyrion to the broken body of Baelish. You have saved my throne, he whispered. But at what cost? Ned did not answer. Tyrion turned to the king. The cost would have been greater had you done nothing. Now is the time to mend, not break. Belinda. Robert sat, head in hands, and the court watched as the dawn crept through the shattered windows, laying red gold over stone and steel. The aftermath was slow, painful, and uncertain. Cersei and Joffrey were sent back to Casterly Rock under guard. Their claims to the throne revoked, but their lives spared. For now, Sansa and Arya, safe and whole, clung to their father in the quiet moments between council and court. Tyrion remained, his role more important than ever. He drafted letters to every lord in the realm, urging reconciliation, peace, and the vision of a kingdom united not by fear, but by law and honor. The North held, the Riverlands healed, and the Reach watched with wary hope. The Vale, uncertain, sent envoys of peace. The Iron Islands stirred, but Eddard Stark was ready for them. For the first time since the rebellion, the realm breathed. Peace was not certain nor easy, but it was possible. Ned found Tyrion one evening, overlooking the city from the ramparts. You could leave now, Ned said quietly. None would blame you. Tyrion sipped his wine, looking out over the flickering lights. I could. But I have found a curious thing here, Lord Stark. When one makes peace with his enemies, he makes friends he never expected. I think I'd like to see what comes of it. Ned smiled, tired and true. So would I. Beneath them, the city slept. Pat last, if only for a moment, while two men who should have been enemies stood side by side, looking toward the uncertain dawn. The city of King's Landing had never truly known silence. It was a place of 1,000 sounds, day and night. Bells, shouts, wheels on cobblestone, the muttering of conspirators behind closed doors, the long, patient moan of wind through 1,000 banners above the red roofs. But now, for a few short days, it seemed the city had paused, waiting. In the wake of blood and betrayal, even the crows on the battlements went quiet, and the people held their breath. Ned Stark stood on a balcony above the training yard, the scents of oil and cold iron rising to meet him. The morning sun broke red above the walls, painting his shadow long across the stones. Robb was below, sparring with Jory Castle, sweat darkening his tunic, his sword arm quick and sure. Arya watched from the steps, legs swinging, needle across her knees. Sansa, her eyes still wary, sewed quietly beside Septa Mordane, her fingers never still. He thought of his wife and his sons at Winterfell, and wondered how many letters would bring news of peace before winter came for all of them. He was not alone long. Tyrion Lannister came limping across the stones, his face sharp with purpose, but shadowed by sleeplessness. He stopped beside Ned, propping his elbows on the carved balustrade. "Your son grows skilled," Tyrion said, nodding toward Robb. "And your youngest daughter. She learns quickly." Ned grunted. "They have learned too much, too fast." "That is the way of it in the South," Tyrion replied, more gently than his usual mockery. "Children must become wolves before they are grown, or lambs for the slaughter." They watched the yard in silence. It was a companionable, quiet, hard one, after months of suspicion and danger. Tyrion's gaze was on Robb, but Ned saw him flick glances at the archers drilling at the walls, the guards posted at the gates, ever vigilant, ever cautious. Tyrion had not returned to his family, nor sent word to Tywin of any plan or betrayal. He remained in the city, in Ned's confidence, balancing loyalty and exile on the edge of a knife. "How long will Robert keep the peace?" Ned asked at last. Tyrion shrugged. "He is tired, and his enemies are fewer. But kings grow restless when denied their pleasures. Your alliance has bought time, but not forever. Then time is all I ask." Tyrion turned, his tone softer. "Your victory in the throne room was not the end. Lannister gold still whispers in the dark. The Queen's supporters are cowed but not broken. Baelish is dead, but others, Pycelle, Varys, even some among your own. Wait to see which way the wind blows. The next storm will come from the west. My father's patience is legendary, but it is not infinite." Ned nodded. "If Tywin means to march, I will meet him on open ground, not at my children's feet." Tyrion tapped the balustrade. "And if he sends assassins, not banners, then we will meet them in the dark, as we have before." Tyrion's smile was thin. "You are too honest for this city, Lord Stark, but perhaps that is why it stands." They stood together, watching as Robb knocked Jory's sword from his hand and saluted with the blade. Arya cheered, her laughter bright and clear in the cold air. Sansa looked up, offering a shy smile, uncertain but genuine. For a moment, Ned let himself believe it would last. A raven came before noon, its seal black and gold. Robert Baratheon sat hunched on his throne, his eyes red-rimmed, his face heavy with wine and regret. The raven's letter was clutched in one fist, the parchment crushed in his grip. Cersei was gone from court, her rooms stripped bare and her retainers sent back to the Rock. But the loss of her presence was felt in every shadowed hall and suspicious glance. Ned stood before the Iron Throne, Tyrion at his side. The small council gathered, less than it once was. Pycelle blinking nervously, Varys inscrutable, Renly standing behind his brother, the only Baratheon who looked at all at ease. "The Lannisters march," Robert said, voice rough with anger. 10,000 under Tywin, banners flying from Harrenhal to the Golden Tooth. They do not threaten, they advance. The Riverlords are mustering, Edmure writes for aid. "What do we do, Ned?" Ned had been expecting this. He spoke quietly but without hesitation. "We answer with strength, your grace. Robb will ride with our banners, the Riverlords with us. The Vale will hold, as will the North. If Tywin wants war, he will find it. But not on his terms." Pycelle sputtered. his quill shaking. Perhaps we might parley. Send envoys. Robert slammed his goblet on the armrest. Parley with Tywin? He'll take the heads of our envoys and send them back dipped in gold. No, we ride. Renly was silent, but his eyes were troubled. My lords, the Reach is watching. The Tyrells. We cannot wait for the Tyrells, Ned said. If they join us, so be it. But we must move now. The king must ride at the head of his host, or the realm will think him weak. Robert grinned, his old fire sparking. So, I shall. And you, Ned, by my side. Will remind the lions that the stag and wolf hunt together. Then? Tyrion interjected, voice measured. And what of King's Landing? If both of you march, the city will be left in chaos. Ned fixed him with a look. You will stay, Lord Tyrion, as hand in my absence. The council will obey your word as mine. Bronn and my men will see you safe, and Varys will keep you informed. Tyrion nodded, but Ned saw the unease in his eyes. The imp had always preferred the shadows to the throne room. Robert clapped Ned on the shoulder. See to it, hand et ois. Ready the city. The realm rides to war. The next days passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Ned met with Robb, Arya, and Sansa beneath the heart tree in the Godswood, the last safe place in the city for honest words. Robb was eager to ride, his youth burning with purpose. We'll meet the Lannisters in the field, father. The North remembers. Arya clung to Ned, fierce and small. Let me ride too. I can fight. Ned knelt, holding her face in his hands. Not this time, little wolf. Keep Sansa safe. Listen to Septa and to Lord Tyrion. Remember who you are. Sansa was silent, her eyes full of unshed tears. She had seen too much, grown too soon. Ned kissed her brow. Have courage, sweetling. Write your mother. Remind her we are strong, and we are together. He left them with heavy heart, knowing he might never see them whole again. Robb rode out at dawn, 1,000 Northmen in his wake, banners snapping in the wind. The Riverlords joined them at the crossroads, Edmure Tully and his knights swelling their numbers. Scouts brought word of Lannister outriders. Skirmishes flaring along the Tumblestone and Red Fort. War had come at last. Ned remained with Robert, planning the march. Tyrion, as hand, took command of the city guard, dismissing the last of Slint's loyalists and installing Bronn's men in their place. Varys helped smooth the transition, whispering to any noble who wavered that the realm's peace depended on swift, decisive rule. On the eve of their departure, Ned found Tyrion in the Hand Solar, reading a map by candlelight. You know what to do, Ned said. Hold the city, protect my girls. If Robert falls, if I fall, Tyrion interrupted him, his face unusually grave. If you fall, I will do what is necessary. But if you win, return quickly. Power is a beast that grows hungry in its keeper's absence. Ned clasped his arm. Thank you, Tyrion. You have given more than I expected. Tyrion only shrugged, but his grip was firm. See that you win, Lord Stark. I have no wish to be King's Hand a day longer than necessary. The campaign began in chaos and blood. The Lannister host burned a dozen villages in the Riverlands, but found the Northern Riverlords waiting for them at River Run. The first clash was fierce. Tywin sent Gregor Clegane and Amory Lorch at the van, but Robb's cavalry smashed their lines and Edmure's archers cut down the stragglers. Gregor was wounded and barely escaped, leaving a trail of dead and dying. Ned and Robert arrived with the main force, their presence bolstering the resolve of allies and scattering Lannister foragers. The king rode at the head, laughing and bellowing, his warhammer red with blood. Ned fought at his side, grim and steady, the memory of his children and the promise he'd made to Catelyn burning in his mind. Tywin, cold and calculating, did not risk open battle. He fell back to Harrenhal, leaving his rear guard to slow the royal host. Skirmishes flared from dawn till dusk, each one a gamble. Robb proved his mettle, leading the vanguard with reckless courage, earning the grudging respect of the Riverlords. At night, around flickering campfires, the talk was of home and of peace, of what would come after. Ned wrote letters to Sansa and Arya, news of small victories and reminders to hold fast. He wrote to Catelyn, telling her of Robb's courage and the strength of the northern host. In King's Landing, Tyrion fought a quieter war. He sniffed out plots, bribed the wavering, and kept the gold cloaks loyal with coin and promises. He met with the heads of the great houses, learning who might betray the king should the war turn. Sansa and Arya were seen riding in the gardens, guarded at all times, but otherwise allowed the freedom of the Red Keep. Tyrion spent long hours with Arya, schooling her in the art of eavesdropping, in remembering faces and overheard names. He received word from the Rock, his father's messengers, demanding his return, offering pardon and promises. Tyrion ignored them, sending polite refusals. "I am the king's hand," he wrote, "and as such, my duty is to the realm." Whispers grew. Some called him traitor to his house. Others spoke of a Lannister who truly cared for the realm, not only for his own. Bronn, for his part, turned the city's thieves into his eyes and ears. When rumors came of a plot against the girls, Bronn's men found the would-be assassins before they could strike, their bodies quietly dumped into the Blackwater. The city's tension ebbed and flowed, but Tyrion's rule held. When a riot broke out over the price of bread, he opened the granaries and held court in the streets, handing out bread with jokes and promises. The people began to cheer his name, half in jest, half in relief. In the shadows, Varys watched and smiled. The war in the west dragged on. Tywin would not risk all on a single battle, but Ned knew time was against him. Winter crept closer, the nights longer, the days colder. Robb was wounded at Oxcross, a spear grazing his thigh, but he fought on, refusing to leave the field. At Harrenhal, Tywin finally offered terms. Ned, Robert, and Edmure met him at the ruins. Banners lowered, the armies drawn up under a truce. Tywin's face was stone. "We could end this here," he said. "No more dead sons, no more burned villages. The North withdraws, the king remains on his throne, and the debts of the realm are paid." Robert spat. "The debts of the realm. How many have died for your debts, Tywin?" Ned spoke quietly. "We want peace, but peace must be more than a pause in killing. Your men must return to the Rock. Cersei and Joffrey remain in exile. The Riverlands are made whole." Tywin's eyes narrowed. "And my son?" Ned met his gaze. "Lord Tyrion is the king's hand, loyal to the crown. If you want him back, come and take him. But you will not find him easy prey." For a long time, Tywin said nothing. Then he nodded. "We will withdraw. But remember this, Lord Stark, every debt must be paid in gold or in blood." Robert snorted. "Let's hope it's gold." The armies broke camp, returning to their lands. The realm, battered and scarred, limped toward peace. King's Landing in autumn was cool and bright, the markets full of color, the people venturing from their homes again. Ned rode through the city gates to cheers, Robert at his side. The royal host followed, banners streaming, the banners of the wolf and the stag together. Tyrion met them in the throne room, Bronn at his shoulder, Arya and Sansa waiting anxiously. The girls rushed to Ned, clinging to him as if they would never let go. Robert declared a feast, one to be remembered for 100 years. The city sang that night, wine flowed like water, and for the first time in memory, there was laughter in the Red Keep. Afterward, Ned found Tyrion on the ramparts, a cup of wine in hand. "We have peace for now," Ned said. Tyrion raised his glass. "For now, but winter is coming, Lord Stark. We must be ready." Ned smiled, tired but hopeful. "Then let us face it together." The wolf and the lion stood side by side, watching the moon rise over the city, uncertain what the next dawn would bring, but ready to meet it, whatever it might hold. Wow. Pa. Winter's chill seeped into the very stone of the Red Keep. As the days shortened, the sky above King's Landing paling from gold to pearl gray to the bruised blue of approaching storms. The city was at peace. So the small folk said, as they queued for bread and huddled closer at their fires. But Ned Stark knew that in the south, peace was as thin as a crow's feather. Each new dawn brought rumors and new omens, and the world turned as quietly and inexorably as ice settling on a pond. The feast, celebrating the alliance of wolf and lion, had changed the mood of the court, at least for a time. The grand hall echoed with the clash of cups and laughter. But beneath it all, new lines of loyalty and suspicion were drawn. The loyalists to Robert, stalwart lords of the Stormlands and the North, raised their voices and their banners high, and for the first time since his arrival, Ned sensed real unity, a sense that the realm could truly be whole again. But always, there was the undertow, the knowledge that men like Tywin Lannister did not forgive, and never forgot. Tyrion Lannister's role as Hand had been solidified. The courtiers, those who'd once snickered at the imp and whispered behind his back, now approached him with guarded respect. His wit was as sharp as ever, but now it was laced with authority, and the gold cloaks, under Bronn's command, answered first to him. Sansa and Arya were safe, moving through the palace with a dignity and wariness that belied their years, and Robb was gone north again to Winterfell, a leader now in more than just name. For a few short weeks, Ned allowed himself to believe that hope had roots in this stony soil. But then the letters began to arrive, first from the Reach, then from Dorne, finally from the Iron Islands, each with words that echoed the same sentiment. Peace was the opportunity for ambition, and ambition was the enemy of rest. Ned summoned Tyrion to his solar, the ancient sword ice resting in its rack above the hearth, the flames casting it in silver and shadow. Tyrion entered quietly, a ledger under one arm, his eyes red-rimmed from long hours and little sleep. "It's never truly over, is it?" Tyrion asked, helping himself to a cup of wine. Ned passed him the first letter. "Mace Tyrell offers congratulations on our wise and measured alliance, and requests the king's blessing to betroth his daughter to Renly." Tyrion snorted. "The Reach always follows the wind, not the road. They'll want to see which banner flies over the Red Keep when the snow falls deepest." Ned gave him the second. From Dorne, Prince Doran speaks of old wounds and hopes for healing. He asks for Princess Myrcella to be sent as a ward. Tyrion's mouth twitched. A clever move. Myrcella is Cersei's pride. Doran would hold her as insurance should the Lannisters ever try for vengeance. Now. Ned watched the fire for a moment. "And this?" He handed over the last. "Balon Greyjoy asks for the right to rebuild his fleet, in exchange for loyal service and gold." Tyrion read it, then tossed it into the flames. "He'll rebel the moment he thinks you're weak." Ned sighed. The king would rather feast and hunt than play at these games. "It falls to us." Tyrion sipped his wine. "What of Stannis?" Ned's jaw tightened. "He does not answer my letters. The lords whisper that he hoards ships and provisions on Dragonstone, that he refuses all summons." "Then?" Tyrion set down his cup. "If war comes again, it will come from the shadows. Dorne, the Isles, the Narrow Sea, or from Stannis, if he believes himself wronged." Ned rose, staring at the pale sky beyond the windows. "Then we must be ready. I want more eyes on the ships in Blackwater and a rider sent to Sunspear. If war must come, let us choose where it is fought." Tyrion nodded, his mind already racing ahead. "And if it's peace you wish to hold, the city must see that wolves and lions stand as one, not just at the king's table, but at every gate and post." "We will," Ned replied, "and we will not flinch." By midwinter, the realm braced for the unknown. Word came that the Ironborn had launched raids along the coast, burning villages in the Westerlands and carrying off salt wives from the Reach. Tywin Lannister demanded vengeance, but Ned held him back, reminding him that the king's justice was for all, not just those with the longest swords. Arya, restless and bold, became a shadow in the city's alleys. She listened in the kitchens, befriended stable boys, and soon brought back news to her father's table that could not be found by any lord spies. Sansa, meanwhile, wrote regular letters to her mother at River Run and to Robb at Winterfell, her words full of hope and careful optimism. One day, Arya returned with news that made Tyrion pause over his supper. "They say there's a sell sail in the port, a Lysine captain with a ship that can outrun any in the Blackwater." Arya said, sliding onto a bench beside Sansa. He asks after gold and letters of passage from the Hand. Tyrion's eyes sharpened. Did he say what cargo he carries? Arya shook her head. He wouldn't talk to anyone but the Hand or the Wolf Lord. Ned looked at Tyrion, who smiled slightly. Perhaps he carries news, not cargo. They found the captain that evening, a thin, clever-eyed man who bowed deeply to both men. "My lords," he said in accented common, "I have a message from the Narrow Sea. Word from Pentos. The exiled prince, Viserys Targaryen, seeks allies. He has a queen now, and a Dothraki Khalasar behind him. He waits for a sign, a promise from the houses of Westeros. Then now." Ned's face was stone. Tyrion, ever the realist, pursed his lips. "And if we send no promise?" Tyrion asked. The captain shrugged. "Then he waits, or he sails. But his sister is said to be with child. Some say her child is the dragon reborn." Ned dismissed the man with a purse of gold and instructions to return if more news came. He and Tyrion returned to the Red Keep silent, the tension between them as taut as the drawstring of a bow. "We can ill afford another war, especially not with dragons," Ned said. Tyrion tapped his fingers on the stone balustrade. "Perhaps dragons are only stories, but Targaryen blood is a rallying cry for every exile in the free cities. We must keep this close. Robert's temper will bring ruin if he hears of it too soon." Ned nodded. "We tell only those we trust." "And who is that, in this city?" Tyrion asked, almost gently. Ned thought of the faces he trusted. His daughters, Robb, a handful of northern men, and, strangely, this unlikely lion at his side. "You," Ned said, "and perhaps Varys. Though I'll have Bronze Knife at my back whenever I speak to the spider." "Now," Tyrion chuckled, shaking his head, "the gods love their ironies." The weeks turned, and the court became a stage of subtle performances. Tyrion met often with Varys, and with the lords of court. Always a jape or a wry aside on his lips. Always watching. Always waiting. Ned kept the king's counsel tight, refusing entry to those whose loyalty was in doubt. The gold cloaks, bronze men, watched the city's gates and the harbors by night. Sansa came to Ned one morning. Her face troubled. "Father, Lady Margaery Tyrell seeks my company more than ever. She speaks kindly, but always about the future, and what a queen must learn." Ned kissed her brow, remembering the girl she had been before King's Landing had changed them both. "Be wary, but be kind. Margaery is clever, but she is not cruel." Arya, meanwhile, spent more time with Tyrion, who taught her to play Sivas and drink watered wine, and to recognize when a man lies with a smile. One night, as snow threatened the city for the first time in a generation, Ned and Tyrion sat in the solar. Parchment and maps spread before them. "Word from the Vale," Tyrion reported. "Lysa is sick. Some say poisoned, others say simply mad with grief. The Lord's declarant will not follow her if she falls. The Eyrie could be open to alliance." Ned nodded, rubbing tired eyes. "We need the Vale. The North alone cannot hold the peace if the storm breaks." "And in the North?" Tyrion asked. "Robb writes of hard snows, hungry wolves, and loyal men," Ned said, voice distant with longing. "He's a better lord than I ever was at his age. You gave him the tools. He sharpens them now." The city was quiet beyond the windows, but Ned heard the distant cries of fishmongers, the roll of wagons, the clatter of distant bells. "It never ends," he said. Tyrion's smile was small, but genuine. "Nor should it. Life in King's Landing, my lord, is like a game of Sivas. One mistake and all can be lost. But sometimes a pawn, played at the right moment, can change the board forever." Winter came at last, white and silent, and the first snows fell on the city in living memory. The people grumbled, but the gold cloaks kept order, and Tyrion opened the royal granaries to the poor, earning their gratitude and their cheers in the streets. Sansa organized needlework to warm orphans, and Arya helped bronze men keep the streets clear of thieves. The wolf and the lion, side by side, shaped a fragile peace. And so the realm endured, battered and scarred, but unbroken. Ravens flew, lords schemed, old wounds festered, but for a time, just long enough to matter, the kingdom remembered what it was to hope. In the heart of the Red Keep, Eddard Stark and Tyrion Lannister met in secret, weighing the fate of kingdoms over cups of wine and fireside silence, determined to hold the peace together, come what might from across the sea or the shadows of winter. For in the end, that was all they could do, and all that any good man could ask of the gods. A.K. Word of snow falling on King's Landing brought thousands to their doors and windows, each soul marveling or muttering. Children throwing clumps of slush at each other in alleys beneath the towering red walls. It had not snowed in the city since Aerys sat the Iron Throne, and even then, only a dusting. But now the flakes fell thick and fast, turning the roofs and spires ghostly in the moonlight. There was magic in the air. An unease threaded through every hearthside tale, and every gutter's shadow. Eddard Stark rose before dawn, as he had all his life, but the weight of this southern winter sat strange on his shoulders. He dressed without servants, donned his heavy black cloak, and went down to the Godswood, a stunted, struggling thing in the castle's heart, yet beautiful in its stark way, snow silvering the red leaves, the old face on the weirwood inscrutable as ever. He knelt, alone with his prayers. He had not written to Catelyn in a fortnight, unable to find words that would not trouble her. Robb's last raven told of deep snows at Winterfell, wolves grown bold and bannermen pledged. But the South's problems were a different kind of cold. Too many lords saw the peace as something to exploit. Too many watched the North and the Lannister alliance with suspicion or outright fear. There were new rumors, Stannis in his tower on Dragonstone, never seen, yet his ships were always out, always watching the sea lanes. Dorne quiet but restless. The Iron Islands raiding, testing the king's response. And from the east, new tales. The Dragon Queen's belly swollen with child. Her Khalasar grown ever larger. Her eyes turned west. Even Robert, battered by grief and age, had begun to listen when Ned spoke of dragons and exiles. He rose from his knees and found Tyrion waiting beneath the snow-brushed branches, bundled in a thick fur cloak, stamping his feet. "You look as if you expect the trees to answer," Tyrion said, teeth chattering. Ned smiled. "If they ever did, it would not be here." Tyrion's eyes drifted upward, tracking the falling flakes. "I was born in winter, you know. Mother died bringing me into the world, during the worst storm the Rock had seen in a decade. I remember nothing of it, but I always wondered if that's why my father saw me as a curse." "Then?" "Fathers and sons rarely speak the same language," Ned answered. "But I doubt Tywin's heart was ever easy to read." Tyrion nodded, glancing down the path where bootprints wound between red leaves and crusted snow. "Bronn says there are more sellswords in the city than at any time since the sack. Half say they're here for Tywin's gold, the rest for a war that hasn't come yet. And Varys claims every wharf rat in Flea Bottom has been bought by someone." Ned's breath misted in the cold. "You think Tywin means to strike soon?" "I think he waits for an excuse, or for the right ally to falter. But it's not just Tywin. There are envoys from Old Town and the city, and Martell banners outside the Lion Gate. The Tyrells press Sansa for friendship. The Greyjoys promise ships and threats in every letter. And Stannis. Stannis sits, always waiting," Ned said. "That is the danger. Not knowing from which quarter the storm will break." Tyrion regarded him for a long moment. "You built peace with the strength of your word and your sword, Ned. But now it lives in the hands of strangers. The people see you and me standing side by side, wolf and lion. And they hope. But hope is a fragile thing here." "Bendan." They walked the snowy paths in silence. Only when the bells of the sept told the hour did they return to the Red Keep, each lost in his thoughts. In the small council chamber, heat and tension warred with the cold outside. Pycelle dozed at the table, clutching a letter from Old Town. Varys whispered with Renly, their faces blank masks of intrigue. Tyrion took his seat beside the king's empty chair, while Ned stood, his gaze sweeping the assembled lord. "We have word from Gulltown," Tyrion announced. "A fleet of Lyseni traders arrived last night, 5 ships. All claimed to carry nothing but wine and cloth, but Bronn's men searched the holds. One had swords hidden under sacks of barley. They were paid in gold stamped with the crowned stag." Renly's eyebrows rose. Treason then, or desperation? Varys murmured. Perhaps both. Ned ignored Pycelle's mumbling. We will close the harbor for a week. Any ship that stays is searched stem to stern. And the gold, we keep it. Tyrion smirked. The city will eat well this winter then. The people love a hand who fills their bellies. Oh. Pycelle woke with a start, looking between them. And what of the Targaryens? Word from Volantis. The Targaryen girl has not landed, Ned interrupted. But her agents are everywhere. They offer pardons and rewards to any Westerosi who will bring them news. Then we must be careful what news we give, Tyrion said. Perhaps it's time to send an envoy east, one who can be trusted to return. Ned shook his head. Not yet. The city needs every friend it can keep. Renly shifted in his seat. What of the Tyrells? Margaery spends more time with Sansa every day, and their mother has sent gifts. Books, dresses, even a little white dog. They seek to marry her to Willis Tyrell. Mendawal. Ned considered. Sansa is not a pawn to be traded, but neither is she a child. Let her choose her friends, but remind Margaery's mother that the North remembers those who keep faith, and those who break it. Tyrion let out a soft laugh. The girl is clever. She'll see through any plot. Ned's eyes met his. I hope so. Days later, Sansa came to Ned in the snow-cloaked Godswood, her cheeks red from the cold, her eyes bright and wary. Father, Margaery says her family will support the crown if the Reach is shown proper respect. She says Willis wants only peace, and that the old feuds are foolish. Ned crouched to her height, brushing snow from her sleeve. Do you trust her, Sansa? She thought for a long time. I think she wants to be queen, but I also think she is kind. She could have 100 girls for friends, but she chooses me. Be wary, Ned said. The Reach plays a longer game than most. They remember slights from 100 years ago, and they love honeyed words. Sansa nodded. Should I stop seeing her? No, but listen well. Remember that your heart is your own, and your loyalty is to your family, above all. She hugged him then, fiercely. I miss Mother. Ned held her close, wishing, not for the first time, that he had the power to mend what war and ambition had torn. That evening, Tyrion found Arya fencing with Bronn on a snowy balcony, the two of them laughing as if they were equals. Not lord's daughter and mercenary. Tyrion watched for a time, then beckoned Arya over. Your sister makes friends with queens and ladies, he said. But you, Arya, you make friends with sellswords and stable hands. What does that say about you? Arya shrugged. It says I'd rather know how to fight than how to sew. He chuckled. Wise beyond your years. But listen. There are new faces in the city, and some are not as friendly as Bronn. If you ever see a man with purple eyes and a silver ring, you come to me. Do you understand? Arya nodded, solemn for once. I will, my lord. He tousled her hair and left her to her practice, his mind racing. Even in times of peace, danger crept close. A council was called at dusk, attended by the lords of the city, the Reach, the Westerlands, the Stormlands, and ambassadors from the Vale and Dorne. Robert presided, grizzled and weary, but resolute. Ned sat at his right, Tyrion at his left. Robert's voice boomed over the hall. Winter is here, and the realm holds. But I will not have every bastard and exile laying claim to my crown. Tywin, what say you? Ben-Chol. Tywin, his hair gone to steel and gold, answered in the measured tones that had cowed kings. The Lannisters keep their word, your grace. The Westerlands will send grain to the city, and swords to the Crownlands. But the Ironborn are another matter. If they mean to raid my shores, I will repay them tenfold. Beneath the table, Tyrion's fingers drummed. Father, perhaps the Iron Islands should be shown a new lord's justice. Invite Balon to court, let him explain himself? Tywin nodded. If he refuses, we burn his ships. Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, smiled slyly. And what of the girl across the sea? Robert glowered. If she lands in Westeros, we end her. Until then, let her dream. Ned kept his counsel, but exchanged a glance with Tyrion. The time would come when even Robert would have to face the past. The snow continued to fall, turning King's Landing into a city of white towers and silent streets. Children built wolves and lions in the palace gardens, and for once the city was peaceful. Sansa's white dog slept at her feet. Arya sparred in the yard. Bronn and the gold cloaks kept the gates. Ned stood with Tyrion on the highest tower, watching dawn break pink and gold over the frosted rooftops. "We have won a season of peace," Ned said quietly. Tyrion nodded. "But there are always more seasons. Then let us teach our children well, so they are ready when the next storm comes." The two men, so different and so alike, stood in the cold and watched the sun rise, stubborn and bright above the snow, and wondered what stories the bards would someday tell of the winter, when wolves and lions stood as brothers in the heart of the realm. Okay. Winter in King's Landing was nothing like winter in the north, and yet to Eddard Stark it felt as real and sharp as the wind on the battlements of Winterfell. The snow on the city's red-tiled roofs would melt by noon, but the cold lingered beneath everything, tightening the faces of the small folk, making every lord's word carry an edge. The city had grown quieter. The songs from the taverns faded earlier each night. The gold cloaks stamped their feet harder on the cobbles, and children huddled in doorways for warmth. Rumors spread as thick as the frost. War in the west, dragons in the east, a wolf and a lion ruling together at the king's side. Ned woke each morning before the dawn, his mind never still. He would walk the snowy paths of the Godswood, sometimes alone, sometimes with Arya padding behind, sometimes with Sansa wrapped in a heavy cloak. Arya liked to range ahead, the tip of needle leaving patterns in the thin snow. Sansa kept to the path, asking questions about Winterfell and the North, about loyalty and love. Once, she asked quietly if her father would ever send her away, as Cersei had sent Myrcella to Sunspear. "Never," Ned said, voice firm as the stone beneath their feet. "We are Starks, and we hold to each other. Whatever the realm brings, I will not let you be a pawn." Sansa smiled through tears. Ned held her close, and in that moment felt the weight of the crownless burden he had carried since Robert brought him south. Tyrion Lannister moved through the palace like a cat in a new home, all his wit and caution now backed by the power of the hand. Bronn was always near, and a cadre of gold cloaks who owed their place and their coin to the imp tide. Yet there was no arrogance about Tyrion, only the watchfulness of a man who knows enemies linger behind every tapestry, every smile, every lord's courteous bow. He held court for the small folk in the shadow of the Sept, opening the king's stores to ease the hunger of winter. He met with the guilds and the master builders, earning their loyalty not with gold, but with promises kept. And all the while he whispered with Varys and Renly, shaping the city's fate with a word here, a jest there, a sly warning or a gentle threat. Ned trusted him, more than he trusted any other south of Moat Cailin, and that in itself sometimes startled him. But trust is the coin of survival, and winter had taught Eddard Stark the value of loyal friends. One evening, as the snow drifted heavier, Tyrion found Ned in the solar, hunched over a sheaf of letters. "You read too much," Tyrion quipped, pouring himself a cup of warm wine. "It's a vice, but not the worst one I've seen in this city." Ned gestured at the papers. "Word from Robb. The snows have trapped half his men at the last hearth, but there's no sign of raiders from beyond the wall. The Karstarks send their loyalty, and the Manderleys send fish and wine. The North endures." Tyrion raised his cup in salute. If only the South were so simple. The Tyrells want more influence at court, and Willis has written to Sansa. She blushes when she reads his letters, you know. The Dornish are silent, which worries me more than any threat. And the Ironborn are rebuilding their fleet at Pike. Balon Greyjoy will try his luck again. He never learns. Neither do kings, or so my father used to say. Tyrion smiled, then turned serious. "And Stannis?" Ned shook his head. "No word. He sits in his stone keep and waits." "And the East?" Tyrion asked quietly. Ned handed him a sealed scroll. From Bravos. A merchant prince offers an alliance in the name of the Targaryen girl. He says she has 3 dragons now, and a Khalasar at her back. Tyrion's eyebrows rose. 3 dragons. The old stories returned. What does Robert say? Bend. He says he will believe in dragons when one burns his banners on the trident. But I do not think the king sleeps easy. Tyrion set the scroll aside, his face grave. We should not wait for dragons to cross the sea. If Daenerys comes, she'll come with fire, and fire does not care for banners. Ned met his eyes. The people look to us, Tyrion. Not to banners, not to gold. They want peace and bread and warmth. We give them that, or we are no better than those we fought to depose. Tyrion drained his cup. A hard thing to be the good men in a city of wolves. Ned said. But if we do not try, who will? In the streets, the snow brought a fragile peace. Sansa and Marguerite Tyrell sewed blankets for the orphans in the Sept of Baelor, and even Arya was pressed into service, though she protested and found every excuse to slip away to the practice yard, where Bronn showed her how to balance on one foot and strike from her left side. The city's folk began to speak of the kindness of the North and the wisdom of the little lion. Word spread to the Riverlands, and soon Edmure Tully arrived with a small retinue, bearing news and offers. His face was drawn, but he smiled when he saw Sansa and Arya. He brought a letter from Catelyn, full of news from Riverrun, where the river still flowed and the fish were biting. Edmure and Ned met in private, the fire crackling in the hearth. You have done what many said was impossible, Ned, Edmure said, his voice full of wonder. A Lannister and a Stark, keeping the peace together. If only Hoster could have seen it. Ned shook his head. It is not easy. There are those who plot, who wait for a chance to break the peace. Tywin will never forgive us. The Ironborn sharpen their axes. And across the sea, the Dragon Queen? Edmure finished. I have heard the same stories. Some say she is beautiful as summer. Others say she rides with demons. Ned smiled. She is flesh and blood, not demon. But the stories matter more than the truth. If Westeros believes in dragons, then dragons will come. Robb is safe. Ned nodded. He is the North now. Strong and proud. He misses his sisters. Edmure sipped his wine. You have changed, cousin. You are harder than you were. Then, winter changes us all. As spring crept closer, messengers from every corner of the realm arrived in the city, each bringing tidings of peace, or warning of war. Balon Greyjoy sent an envoy bearing a crown of driftwood and a threat. But Ned's reply was cold and final. The North remembers. The crown stands. From the east came a letter, bearing the seal of Daenerys Targaryen herself. Tyrion read it aloud to Ned and Robert. To King Robert Baratheon, from Daenerys Stormborn, Queen of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men. I offer peace if peace is offered me. I claim the throne of my ancestors, but I would not burn the realm to rule it. Send envoys if you would speak. Ban. Robert was incensed, but Tyrion's eyes met Ned's over the table. She writes as a queen, not a conqueror. She is a child. Robert spat. She will come, and I will meet her as I met her brother. But Ned held the letter long after the king left the room. A dragon who offers peace before fire. It is a rare thing. Tyrion moved quickly, sending quiet word to the free cities. Varys' little birds sang new songs, and soon Ned and Tyrion knew more of the Dragon Queen than most in Westeros. She had freed slaves in Astapor and Meereen, taken the Unsullied as her guard, forged alliances with merchant princes and exiled knights. She was clever, they said, and patient. But the world is full of clever and patient enemies. In the end, it was Arya who brought news of the next storm. She returned from the city with a scrap of parchment, stolen from a Braavosi merchant. It's a list, she said, handing it to her father. A list of men who will open the gates to the Targaryens when the time comes. Ned read the names in silence, then passed the list to Tyrion. Some were familiar, old bannermen, lesser lords. Others were strangers. But all had one thing in common. They believed change was coming. Tyrion studied the parchment, then looked up. The game is afoot, Lord Stark. The city braced itself. The snow melted. The rivers swelled. And ships from the east filled the harbor. The realm watched, waited, and wondered. On a quiet morning, with the god's wood budding and the walls slick with melting frost, Ned and Tyrion met on the tower roof, looking out over the city they had saved and might yet lose. "Will she come?" Ned asked. Tyrion considered. "If she is wise, not yet. But wisdom is rare in the young and in the old. We have made peace here," Ned said. "It is not enough, but it is more than we had." Tyrion smiled, the first real smile in weeks. "Sometimes, Ned, that is all the gods ask. The rest is in their hands." And one. Together, they watched as the sun broke through the clouds, lighting the towers of the Red Keep with a promise of hope, however fragile. The wolf and the lion stood side by side, ready for whatever storm might next shake the realm. Oh, Katie. The first bright days of spring thaw brought no relief to the tension that bound King's Landing tighter than any frost. Melting snow bared rooftops and alleys. The city's grime and wounds revealed again beneath the cleansing cold. Along the walls, Ned Stark watched as sunlight sparkled on the black river of the Blackwater, and banners snapped in the stiff morning breeze. A white direwolf, a golden lion, the crowned stag. The city was quiet, almost reverent. But to Ned, silence in the capital was never the herald of peace, only the breath before the storm. The small council met in the king's solar that morning, sunlight streaming through tall windows, glinting off a dozen goblets and the gold thread in Pycelle's robe. Robert was already there, hunched over a map of the realm, fingers stained with wine and ink, while Tyrion sat at his right, one leg propped on a cushioned stool, eyes sharp and clear. Varys arrived late, moving on silent feet, a waft of scented silk preceding him. Ned nodded his greetings and took his seat. The hush was broken by Pycelle's dry cough. "The snows in the north have begun to recede, my lords. The roads from White Harbor are open again. There are rumors, refugees from the east, tales of dragons." Robert grunted. "Let them come then. A bit of fire and the peasants will run home to their mothers." "Ned." Tyrion only sipped his wine. "Peasants are wise, your grace. They run when they see storms gathering on the horizon. Perhaps we should pay heed." Ned suppressed a smile. Tyrion had grown into his role as hand, his authority felt in every corner of the Red Keep. He was both shield and goad to Robert, provoking the king's temper when needed, softening it when wisdom was the safer course. "We've received a letter," Varys said, his voice all silk and smoke. "From Old Town. The High Septon wishes to know if the rumors of dragons are true, and whether the realm should call for another Targaryen purge." "Ben?" Robert's eyes darkened. "Let the gods keep their priests. I'll not have burning in the streets again." Tyrion tapped a finger on the table. "We should not dismiss the faith, your grace. But we might remind them that order in the city is best maintained by bread, not bonfires." Pycelle nodded sagely, though Ned suspected he was half asleep. "A sound policy, my lords." Robert shifted in his seat. "Enough. What of the Ironborn?" Ned cleared his throat. "Robb writes that Balon Greyjoy's ships raid along the western coast, but they're driven back wherever the banners of Stark or Lannister are raised together. The River Lords send word of minor skirmishes. The north is secure for now." Tyrion added, "But the Ironborn test our watch. Sooner or later, they will tire of failing and turn elsewhere. We should prepare our own fleet in the bay." Robert grumbled but agreed. "Send orders to Davos in the Stormlands. If anyone can build ships worth a damn, it's the Onion Knight." Ned's heart eased a fraction. Davos Seaworth was a rare man, loyal, honest, and cunning. The kind a king should listen to, if only Robert ever did. As the council adjourned, Tyrion lingered, gesturing for Ned to join him on the balcony, overlooking the inner courtyard, where Arya and Sansa walked arm in arm, their voices lost in the morning wind. "Things change quickly in this city," Tyrion murmured. "One season to the next, loyalties turn and alliances bend. I have spies in the free cities who say Daenerys has sent envoys to Braavos, Pentos, even Myr. She gathers not just horsemen, but gold and ships. And dragons are not mere rumor now. Then, Ned's face was stone. If she lands in Westeros, Robert will answer with war. That much he cannot help. Tyrion nodded. And your heart? My heart is in the north, Ned answered. But my duty is here. I will not let war burn the realm if there's any other path. Tyrion's smile was rueful. There is always another path, but seldom one a king will walk. They watched in silence as Arya demonstrated a clumsy leap, Sansa laughing, their cheeks flushed with youth and hope. The sight was balm to Ned's soul, but bittersweet. How long could such innocence endure, when dragons and wolves and lions circled the same throne? That afternoon, Margaery Tyrell brought Sansa to the Queen's Gardens, a hidden space blooming with the earliest crocuses, their petals bold against the cold ground. Margaery's laughter was easy, her words smooth as cream, but Sansa sensed the tension beneath her grace. They say your father and Lord Tyrion hold the realm together like two hands on a single sword, Margaery said. Do you think the peace will last, Sansa? Sansa thought of her father's face, so grave these days, and Arya's quick tongue, and the rumors that even gentle Septa Mordain could not keep from her. I hope so, she said honestly. But my Lord Father says peace is like a flower. It must be tended every day, or weeds will choke it. Margaery's smile was approving. Your father is wise, and you must be as well. My mother says the court looks to you and your sister, to see if you will befriend the Reach. Sansa hesitated. I like you, Margaery, but I am not a queen. I do not choose alliances. Then, Margaery reached for her hand. But you may. The Reach does not forget its friends, Sansa. Remember that. Afterward, Sansa found Arya practicing with Bronn in a shaded corridor. The clack of wood on wood echoed. Arya grinned, triumphant, as Bronn yielded with a theatrical groan. You'll be the death of me, girl. I hope not, Arya replied. I like you, Bronn. He bowed, laughing, then caught sight of Sansa and tipped his head in respect. You've a fine family, Stark. Sansa smiled, the tension in her heart easing for a moment. We try. Night in the Red Keep was when the true business of the city began. Tyrion, by candlelight, worked through letters from the Narrow Sea, reports from various spies, and the endless accounts of grain and coin. Bronn brought him word of a brawl in Flea Bottom, 2 Ironborn slain by gold cloaks, a merchant's house burned. Old scores, my lord, nothing more. Everything is more these days, Tyrion muttered. Send more men to the wharves, and check the warehouses. I want no surprises when the next ship lands from the east. Bronn nodded and vanished, his loyalty paid in coin and the thrill of danger. Varys arrived as Bronn departed, all smiles and apologies. The city is restless, my lord Hand. The people dream of dragons, and dreamers are dangerous. But there is another matter. The High Septon meets in secret with the Lords Declarant of the Vale. They plot to name a new king, should Robert fall. Tyrion set down his pen. They grow bold then. Have you names? Varys fluttered his sleeves. Some? Nine. They favor Robb Stark, or Stannis, or even Renly. It depends on the hour, and the size of the bribe. Them? Tyrion's mouth twisted. Keep watch. If they move openly, we strike first. Varys inclined his head. It shall be done. Alone again, Tyrion poured a final cup of wine and stared at the map spread before him, wondering what piece would move next. The game was never truly won in King's Landing, only played a little longer. Spring wore on. The city's mood shifted with every rumor. News from the north that Robb had quelled a wildling raid. Word from Dorne that Prince Doran was ill and a baron now ruled the day. And from Old Town a warning that the maesters saw omens in the stars. The only constant was the slow approach of the sea, and the sense that change pressed ever closer. One morning, a Lysing galley sailed up the Blackwater, her hull painted with a dragon's head and her captain bearing letters marked with the red seal of Daenerys Targaryen. Ned and Tyrion met the captain in the throne room, surrounded by lords in gold cloaks. The Lysine bowed, offering a scroll. From her grace, Daenerys Stormborn, to the lords of Westeros. She seeks a council to treat for peace. On neutral ground, with hostages exchanged for safety. Robert's temper flared. I'll not parley with dragons. But Ned stepped forward, his voice calm and cold. We must hear what she says, Your Grace. If only to know our enemy's heart. Tyrion supported him. Let the realm see we fear no one. Not even Targaryens. The king glared but relented. Let it be so. Choose the place, Ned. And if she tries treachery, I'll put her head on a spike. Then Nassau. After the council dispersed, Ned and Tyrion lingered. This will be dangerous, Ned said. All of it is dangerous, Tyrion answered. But a cornered animal is twice as deadly. If Daenerys wants to speak, we must be sure we speak first. And loudest. They set about the preparations, sending ravens to River Run, Sunspear, Highgarden, and the Eyrie, inviting all the great houses to witness the council. The place chosen was Maidenpool, a town battered by war and rebuilt by hope. Its walls now bright with banners from every corner of the realm. As the lords gathered, Edmure with his river knights, Oberyn with his Dornish spears, Mace Tyrell in green and gold, Ned rode with Robert and Sansa at his side, Arya just behind, her face set with resolve. Tyrion traveled with Bronn, the Lannister gold a silent shield. Maidenpool became a city of tents and expectations. The docks filled with strange ships, and the fields beyond the town teemed with men at arms. The Targaryen banners, red and black, hung above a white tent on the eastern shore. Daenerys arrived at dusk, her silver hair shining in the last light, 3 young dragons circling overhead. She was guarded by Unsullied, and with her rode knights and exiles in old Targaryen colors. She dismounted with a grace that stilled the crowd. Her face composed, her eyes ancient and unafraid. Ned met her in the great hall of Maidenpool, Robert at his side, Tyrion just behind. Your Grace, Ned said, bowing as host. She inclined her head. Lord Stark, King Robert, Lord Tyrion. Robert's eyes narrowed. You come to treat, girl, or to threaten? I come for peace if you will have it, Daenerys replied. Westeros has bled enough. I do not wish to rule a graveyard. Robert scoffed. You come with dragons, and say you want peace. She did not look away. A sword is for defense or for blood. Which will yours be, Robert Baratheon? The room waited. Ned could feel the eyes of every house, every rival, every hopeful, and every enemy. Tyrion watched Daenerys with the keenest gaze, weighing every word. Ned stepped forward. Let us speak then, as those who wish for the realm to endure. Let us see if wolves, lions, stags, and dragons can find a path that does not end in fire and death. The council began, with the realm's future trembling on the knife edge of hope. Night in Maidenpool was restless. Every house sent spies, every word weighed and measured. Sansa and Arya sat together by candlelight, Sansa writing letters to her mother, Arya sharpening needle, the sounds of revelry and fear mingling in the air. Tyrion met with Oberyn Martell and Margaery Tyrell in secret, finding common cause in survival. We have all lost in war, Oberyn said. Perhaps now we may gain in peace. Margaery smiled, her eyes sharp. If the lions and the wolves can keep faith, so can the roses and the vipers. The council was hard and long. Daenerys offered peace for a seat at the council table and recognition as the rightful heir, not as queen. Robert balked, but the other lords listened. It was Ned in the end who broke the deadlock. We are a realm of many houses, many bloods. Perhaps it is time we rule together, not as conqueror and conquered, but as a council. A king, a hand, and a council of all the great houses. No more war, only the law. Silence. Then Daenerys smiled. You are wise, Lord Stark, Tyrion said softly, and brave. But will the lords agree when the time comes? Ned looked at the assembled faces. If they will not, they will have another war. And this time, it will burn the world. The next dawn, with the sun red and gold on the sea, the lords agreed. Peace, with a council to rule. Robert would remain king, but Daenerys would take a seat, and the realm would be ruled by consent. Ned and Tyrion stood together as the banners unfurled. Direwolf, lion, dragon, and stag, all caught in the same wind. The wolf and the lion had kept faith, and for the first time in a lifetime, hope outshone fear. In the halls and tents of Maidenpool, men and women whispered of a new beginning, even as they watched the horizon for the next storm. But for that one day, under banners bright in the sun, the realm was at peace. Dawn in Maidenpool carried the promise of spring, the sharpness of salt on the air from the sea, and a sense of hope that trembled through every tent and hall. News of the council's peace, if not the details, at least the miracle of it, had already begun to travel. For the first time in living memory, the great houses of Westeros found themselves gathered not for war, but for talk. And though the field was thick with guards and wary eyes, not a single sword had yet been drawn. Ned Stark woke in his pavilion to the soft hush of rain against canvas and the muffled sound of voices outside. For a moment he let himself imagine that this was a camp on the edge of the Wolf's Wood, that Robb or Benjen would be waiting by the fire. But the next moment, the old ache returned. He was a stranger in the south, and peace was never so simple. He dressed, belting ice at his hip, and stepped outside into the gray dawn. Arya was already up, leaning against a post, water beading on her hair. "Can I watch the council today, father?" she asked, boots scuffed and eyes bright. Ned smiled. "You may listen. But no chasing dogs in the kitchens, and you stay close to Brienne." Arya grinned. "I promise." She darted away, feet splashing in the wet grass, needles strapped at her side. Sansa and Margaery Tyrell were walking along the palisade, cloaks drawn tight, heads close together. Sansa looked older every day. Her eyes were steady now, her voice clear and strong when she greeted her father. "Lady Margaery wishes to speak to you, father, about the future." Ned nodded, greeting Margaery with northern courtesy. "Your Grace." She smiled, a practiced court smile, but her voice was earnest. "Lord Stark, when this council ends, there will be those who cannot accept a new peace. My house will support your terms, but there will be plots. Some lords will look to the past. Others—" She hesitated, glancing at Sansa. "To your daughters." Ned understood. Sansa is no pawn. Nor is Arya. "You have my word." Margaery inclined her head. "And my friendship, my lord. The North and the Reach can do much together, if we keep faith." After they parted, Ned watched his daughter for a long moment, wondering how much of her heart she'd given to this court of roses and whispers. The council was called at midday, in the great stone hall of Maidenpool, crowded with lords and envoys. Banners hung from the rafters. The direwolf, the lion, the rose, the viper, the falcon, the kraken, the sun and spear, and above them all, the crowned stag and the red three-headed dragon. Robert sat in the king's seat at the table's head, with Daenerys Targaryen to his right, her hair shining like moonlight. Ned took the seat to Robert's left. Tyrion, impeccably dressed, was beside him. The other lords settled in: Edmure Tully, Oberyn Martell, Mace Tyrell, Jon Royce from the Vale, and Theon Greyjoy representing his father. A hush fell as Robert spoke, his voice uncharacteristically measured. "Lords and ladies, Westeros stands at a crossroads. We can make peace or we can bleed. The Dragon Queen has come not as conqueror, but as counselor. We will discuss the future, and I expect all to listen." Daenerys' voice was soft but unyielding. "I ask not for a throne but for justice. Justice for my house and my people, and a place at the table of the realm." The murmurs grew, but Tyrion was quick to speak. "Westeros has known too many kings and too few wise rulers. If the great houses stand together, the realm will thrive. If we fight, we will only be ruled by graves." Edmure Tully, his hair peppered with gray, spoke for the Riverlands. "I have bled for 3 kings. My people want peace, and I will not deny them." Oberyn Martell's smile was sharp as a blade. "Dorne will have its say, but we remember the cost of fire and vengeance. We stand with peace. For now." Jon Royce, broad-shouldered and flinty, nodded. "The Vale stands by the North and its allies." Mace Tyrell was circumspect. "The Reach will support the council, so long as its voice is heard. Theon Greyjoy alone was restless, shifting in his seat. The Ironborn will not bow to dragons or stags. My father? Ned interrupted, his voice quiet but implacable. Your father raids our shores and expects our friendship? The North remembers, Theon. Theon flushed, falling silent, and Tyrion turned the moment deftly. Perhaps the Iron Islands can prove themselves with ships in the king's service, not swords at our throats. A draft from the open door stirred the banners overhead as the lords considered. For hours they argued, over lands, over taxes, over the fate of the Crown lands and the Stormlands, over justice for wrongs old and new. Daenerys listened, answering when she must, her words measured and thoughtful. When tempers flared, Tyrion's wit or Ned's gravity steered them back to purpose. At sunset, a treaty was drafted. The king would rule, but with a council of lords and a lady from each great house, Daenerys among them. The dragons would not cross the narrow sea, save at the council's call. The Reach and Dorne would send food north. The North would supply men to the watch on the wall. The Ironborn would be granted limited autonomy, so long as their raids ceased. No one left the table entirely satisfied, but no one left in open revolt. As night fell, the banners hung motionless, and the realm, against every prophecy and expectation, remained unbroken. That night, the camps of Maidenpool came alive with fires and music. For the first time in memory, lords of rival houses shared wine, and singers made up new verses about the Winter Council and the peace of dragons and wolves. Ned walked the camp, Arya at his side, Sansa arm in arm with Margaery among the Tyrell tents, and everywhere he was met with nods and respectful bows. In a quieter corner, Tyrion and Daenerys spoke beside a fire, Bronn and Jorah Mormont nearby. Tyrion had lost much of his old flippancy. "Your Grace," he said, "the North will be wary, but Ned Stark does not break his word." Daenerys' lips curved. "I believe him. I hope he believes me." "He does. But more than that, the people will. They want peace, and they want something to hope for. You can give them that." Daenerys looked into the fire. "I want to rule, but I do not want to rule alone. Perhaps that is my gift." Tyrion smiled. "It is a rare gift, Your Grace. Cherish it." Elsewhere, Arya and Brienne sparred by torchlight, laughter echoing as the tall knight feigned defeat, and Arya's whoop rose into the stars. In a tent near the river, Sansa wrote to her mother, "We are safe, and peace has come. Lady Margaery says the roses may bloom in the north yet, and I hope it is true. Father is proud of us. I wish you were here to see it." Ned found himself alone by the water, the moon bright on the waves. For the first time in years, his heart was light, but his northern instincts remained. The storm always follows the calm. The following day, the council was reconvened to witness oaths. Robert placed his hand on the great sword Blackfire, Daenerys on her family's silver-hilted blade, Ned on ice. Each lord and lady, one after the other, swore to uphold the peace. As Ned knelt and made his vow, he met Daenerys' eyes. "If you keep your word, the North will keep faith. If you break it, we will remember." She nodded. "Solemn. I mean to keep it." Tyrion swore next, the Lannister words ringing out with more conviction than any who remembered the old court would have expected. In the crowd, Arya grinned at Sansa, and Sansa took her hand. "It is real," she whispered. "We are safe." The great hall rang with applause and cheers. Even the maesters, grim with duty, allowed themselves a moment's hope. When the council ended, the lords returned to their camps, and the city of tents began to empty. The king and queen rode west with their banners. The dragons circled overhead before wheeling away toward the sunrise. Ned remained with his daughters, Tyrion at his side. "You have done it, Lord Stark," Tyrion said, almost in wonder. "Peace, at least for a season." Ned shook his head. "We have all done it, and now we must hold it. That is the harder task." Tyrion laughed. "You are a pessimist, my lord. I am a Stark. We know how quickly summer can end." They shared a companionable silence, watching the tide roll in, knowing that old wounds never healed in a day. but for the first time in a lifetime, the realm had a chance. In the weeks that followed, Westeros changed. The great lords returned to their holds. The council kept in touch through ravens and envoys, and Daenerys made her seat at Dragonstone. Her dragons a symbol of peace rather than terror. The gold cloaks in King's Landing wore new badges, bearing both wolf and lion. Sansa and Arya rode through the city unafraid, and the small folk spoke of the girls with wonder and pride. Tyrion and Ned worked together, ever watchful, ever wary, building alliances and settling disputes before they could fester. With Margaery's counsel, Sansa became a voice for peace among the ladies of the court, while Arya trained with Brienne and inspired a new respect for Stark stubbornness. Robert ruled, not as he once had in his youth, but as a king who had nearly lost all and learned what mattered. He rode less, drank less, and listened more. On a clear night, Ned walked the ramparts with Tyrion, the city sleeping below. "Peace is a living thing," Tyrion said quietly. "We must feed it and tend it, and guard it from the wolves and the dragons both." Ned looked at the stars above. "If we keep faith and remember the cost, perhaps it will last." Below them, banners of wolf and lion snapped together in the night breeze, a promise to a realm still learning how to hope.